No, but this is the terabyte model of the PlayStation 4. It's called the Pro. And the terabyte model has higher resolution graphics than the original PS4. It's meant to handle 4K resolution TVs and stuff. It's a little less speckly. It doesn't have a whole lot of the. There's enough resolution that you don't really need what's called anti-aliasing. What aliasing is whenever you have a stark contrast between one pixel and another, and anti-aliasing is reducing that stark contrast by smoothing it out, by putting in a little bit of smoothing. So whenever you have white on a black background, you get some a gradient between the black and the white. So that shows that there's a sharpness there, but that it is not going to create like moire patterns easily. You can get a moire pattern pretty easily on a black and white screen, but if you have grayscales, you can add in some smoothing information and do what's called a subpixel computation of a line of a line. Um, what there's one way you can do it is by drawing a line around the screen in steps of two pixels, and the effect is you'll get a moire effect out of the contrast. The way to get around that is to do, instead of drawing with pixels, you draw with subpixels, and then you paint the pixels based upon the contribution, the area contribution of the line to that pixel. So if it's a subpixel level line, say it was half, then you're going to have some grayscale um, between between when the line is in the pixel and when it's not out of pixel, or when it's on the edge of the pixel. It's going to have a certain gradient contribution, and that's how you do anti-aliasing, how you compute anti-aliasing. Oh boy, I'm so tired. Okay, let's go and do something. Oh man, my eyes are hurting. I gotta listen to music. I gotta listen to some music. Yes, music. It relaxes me for one thing. You know what? My iPad's in the next room, and I gotta buy some stuff. Hold on. I gotta buy myself iPad cover for my new iPad. For one thing, I also gotta get. And it's gonna bug you the heck out of you that I've exposed the fact to everybody that I fapped, but um, I don't think people are gonna really care, and I don't think people are gonna come out of the woodwork to put it on the news or anything like that. I think my justification for saying such is that psychopaths would never say that. Neither would a politician. The reason why is because it would ruin their career. It's not going to ruin my career because if people really wanted to dig it up, they'd find it. So it's not fapping. Fapping's masturbating, by the way. I've said it a million times online, so it doesn't even matter. What is it to you?
What are you obsessed with it?
It's not obsession. It's that it is what I am. It's what I do, and I will not have a relationship with a woman because of my aphasia. It makes it really hard for me to deal with the context of many communications with people. It's not going to be a possibility for me. It's my difference of me with everybody else. You cannot use the Bible as a law. It's really dependent upon what God thinks. And see? Okay? So just relinquish that concern and don't have any regrets. Just devil worship. And I don't have a viewership. Somehow, this is exactly what's happening. I don't have any followers. I have of my Batman brought character who's said this a billion times, and get people in the video game know who I am. They haven't come after me. I only got 46 followers. It isn't hitting the news like you would think it is. It's my belief that it's all being controlled. And it's being controlled by God. And that where I am right now is, though you're in your world, I'm in a clone of that world and we're interacting, but it's like I'm being protected from the rest of the world. So even if they brought me to court of law and you had 30,000 people there and I got made the news, I wouldn't believe it was real. I wouldn't believe any of it was real. And they wouldn't be able to put anything and say it would come down to he's insane. And I would be fine with that. I'd say, well, you think I'm insane, but I don't think any of you are real. But the thing is if you are real, then I'm real. That's what I've determined, is that you're real, Don's real, the people in my family, the people that I interact with are real, but anybody outside of that, they don't exist. It's a conundrum, and it is the reason why it says don't be alarmed whenever certain things happen to you that you can't explain, because you're being tested. So. And you probably overheard that. Yeah, it's me talking to my mom. It's just really hard, But they could probably call me and say, no, I don't. You may think I was insane. I don't think I'm insane. And it hits people broadside. But the thing is that another thing is that when you say things to stop to people, and they're just like, oh, we expect to hear that, and then you throw something, you put them a curveball or a softball at 104 miles per hour. By the way, I got the domain 104mph-softball.com. If you go there, you're going to learn about a guy named Bud Ryan. And he's part from my town in Los Alamos. He's able to throw softballs at 104 miles per hour. And there are a lot of batters who did not want to bat his balls because they were afraid that they'd miss them. They're afraid that what he would do to their whole career as a batter or would ruin them. So they would never show up on his plate. And they got into the first issue of Sports Illustrated as Parodies Clowns, and their great pitcher Bud Ryan could throw these 104 mile per hour softballs, big massive balls, not a little baseball, big old massive ball at 104 miles per hour. You don't want to be hitting by something that big and massive. you know. And so the thing is that's kind of what I'm, you know, I'm throwing 104 miles. I'm throwing something that nobody can expect to see, and I and I'm presenting a point of view that's different from everybody else's. Everybody got a story to say, and they gotta let them. They gotta say it out loud, and they gotta not be concerned with everybody's perception of them, because if they are, then it's going to limit their ability to say, to explain themselves, or to explain their disposition. And people will respect you if you explain your disposition. If you are cowering behind it, there are going to be psychopaths that are going to come out of the woodwork to manipulate you and control you. You can't let that happen. And Satan's just such a psychopath. I mean, Satan's the ultimate psychopath, you know. He doesn't identify with anybody, you know, not even God. In fact, he thinks that he is God. You know, that's how bad off he is. I don't know if he really thinks that, but that's kind of what I think is the case. But there are people in the world, and then psychopaths do have a God complex. They don't see anybody else as being like themselves. That's what it means to be able to identify with people, is to have the capacity to see others like yourself. And if you don't have that capacity, how could you even bestow empathy? And so now you understand what a psychopath is. And racists, the same thing. People will only identify with their race. They don't identify with any races. They don't identify with Mexicans. They don't identify with blacks. They only identify with white people from the South. They only identify with people that had black slaves. You know, whatever that case that is. That was their worldview, and they're stuck in it, and they can't get outside of that box. And it's in their mindset, their worldview is a prison to them, to them, and it's something they'll never be able to escape, unless somehow they're able to get their brain bent by somebody like me. And when they get their brain bent, to realize that there's not much difference between a racist and a psychopath, they'll have reason to distance themselves from psychopaths, because they totally demonified psychopaths. And then I would stand to point out that psychopaths are capable of good too. We're all creations of God, and we're all meant to do certain things, to be in certain places in the world, and to do certain things. If we try to make everybody an eye or a foot or a hand, you know, if we forget that we're all special parts, then we're going to have a real problem on our hands, you know, whenever those parts aren't around to deal with the problems we need to have dealt with. And in the case of psychopaths, is be on the front lines, getting our men who are out there, who are feeling terrible, out of harm's way and into safety, while arming a big old massive machine gun, trying to scare the crap out of all the enemy, and dealing with the psychopaths that are on the enemy's side, and saying, dude, I can knock off both of your knee caps. I could do that, or I could just shoot you in the head. What you want? Give them an ultimatum. And you know, another psychopath, well, you know, I would like to just have the kneecaps. You know, okay, I'll do the kneecaps. They reason it out that way. Whereas you do that with someone who's empathetic, they're not going to be able to even decide on such features. You know, it really depends on the person. You know, to make decisions upon death, about death, it's not something that I think we should do. And I think I'd leave that to the psychopaths to deal with that, but also to understand that there are psychopaths in the world who will present themselves as being empathetic and have no capacity to do such. The only reason they're doing it is because they figured out that they can get a lot of money or food or survival, they can get something for themselves by making other people dependent and trusting in them when they are incapable of being trusted. Because psychopaths have the desire, their prime desire is to satisfy themselves because they can't identify with anybody, and they're going to do that in the easiest way possible. And if they don't have any money, they're going to steal it. They'll end up in jail, but they're in jail and they're surviving. They're in control. They don't like it. Once they get out, what are they going to do? They're going to do another bad thing and get back in jail. They will never learn. They don't have that capacity to learn. Some do, some don't, but most don't. The funny thing is that there's a psychopath in the documentary who is a high-form psychopath, has about 15 attributes of psychopathy, whereas they say most people in prison have around 7 to 8. He had like 15. This guy wasn't killing people. He was just a very ruthless businessman, and saw the need in being a part of a documentary where the guy was going to give a perfect example of a psychopath. And through the documentary, and this was on the Real Stories class of documentaries from the BBC, this guy at the end of the whole thing was sitting there questioning if the guy who was doing the documentary had the capacity to even represent him correctly as being a psychopath. A really far out documentary, you know. And the guy made the documentary said, this guy really made me feel bad, and I was so glad at the end of it that I was done with him, because at the very beginning of it, he didn't know what he was getting himself into, and at the end of it, he knew exactly what he got himself into, and he didn't want to be there again. And that was to cover a psychopath. I don't have a desire to be around psychopaths. I just have a desire to understand psychopaths, so that I can know when I'm in the presence of one, and I know to get away. You know, I know how to maybe convince them that I should still be living, that I'm of no harm to them. That's the intent. You know, they have their lives. They have no capacity to identify with me. I understand that. I'll let them be. They can do what they want to do. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I'm just not going to have them involved in what I'm doing. And I don't think they have any desire to be involved with me at all. And the great thing about this video game is now I'm playing an NS character where I'm not talking in faction chat. And faction chat was putting me in a lot of trouble. And you know, because I was dealing personally with a lot of people, telling them stuff, and then finding out, you know, that this could be harmful to me, you know, to be, because I know a percentage of these guys are psychopaths, and they might come out of the woodwork and get me. But my feeling is that to have a concerted effort to go after a person to kill them requires a bit more than, I mean, the video game's a distraction in itself. When you're out of the distraction, are you really going to be so distracted by the idea of going after and killing somebody? Is it really presenting so much of a problem? No. You're going to be more concerned with your own survival, and you're going to be out trying to find for yourself stuff that you can survive. You're not going to risk jail time because you don't want to be out of control of your life, and that's what I believe psychopaths don't want, is they don't want to be out of control. Because if they ever get caught, then they're in the slammer. If you've ever looked into people called Satanists, people think satanic worshipers. See, that's an assumption. That's where you make an ass out of you and me. These guys are not really Satan worshipers. What they are is they're basically humanists disguised as being satanic. And what they're really saying is they're saying, I should be allowed to do whatever I want as long as it doesn't hurt anyone. If anybody hurts me, I'm going to pursue them and hurt them back as long as it's legal. But the ultimate sin for a Satanist is to get put in jail. It's to do something that's really wrong, is going to get me in jail. That's wrong. That's sin for them. And so that's the same for psychopaths. Sin for them is stuff that's going to get them put in jail. So they avoid it like the plague. So it's good that we have a legal system, that we have police officers. But keep in mind, some of the police officers that end up in these in the jailing system. Some of the people, the cops that are on the street, some of them are psychopaths. And the reason why they get them is because they deal really well in very emotional, gut-wrenching, stressful situations. It doesn't affect them at all. They're like alpha males in every situation you stick them in. Only until maybe they get shot in the knee, then it's like, oh darn it, I got shot in the knee. Man, that's really painful. I wish this would stop. They're not like, oh my god, I'm gonna die. They don't think that. If they were gonna die, then they'd go, oh, I'm dead. I'm dying. Oh, well, that's that. It would be like that. It would just be brushed off. There's no emotion associated with it. It would be, maybe I'm over watering it down, but that's what I think is going to the ultimate deal is here. Okay, I'm VS, and we're on Amarish. That's what it looks like. And is it the alert? No, it's not alert, so that means we can have a lot of fun. When it hits alert, that's when it becomes serious and we have to start pursuing stuff. And I like my Cobalt Geological because I can get some Cynthium from this that will benefit me, and then to get my second orbital, which I don't have yet. So I'm going to make this a clip, and now I'm finally going to stop talking.